The stellar convergence hummed through the void, a massive diplomatic vessel carrying representatives from 47 species across 3 galactic sectors. In the human quarters on Deck 7, Arya Chen wiped her hands on her maintenance coveralls and surveyed her work with satisfaction. The corridor gleamed like polished glass, reflecting the soft blue luminescence of the ship's lighting systems. Perfect, she muttered, admiring the mirror shine she'd achieved with her grandmother's old floor wax recipe. The other species on the ship relied on sonic cleaners and molecular scrubbers. But Arya preferred the human way: elbow grease, quality wax, and a good buffer. The chemical compounds she'd mixed created a surface so smooth that even the ship's sensors would have trouble detecting imperfections. She placed warning signs at both ends of the corridor, bright yellow markers in 12 languages. Caution, slippery surface. Not that most species would understand the concept. Most aliens wore adhesive foot coverings or had naturally tacky appendages. Only humans, with their smooth-soled boots and peculiar sense of balance, truly understood the treacherous nature of a freshly waxed floor. Arya headed to her quarters, unaware that her handiwork was about to become the catalyst for an interstellar incident. Jurok pressed his face against the observation window, his amber eyes tracking the stars streaking past. At 6 cycles old, he was still considered a cub among the Krell. Apex predators from Dracon Prime, a world where everything had claws, fangs, and an instinct for the hunt. His people had evolved in forests where a single misstep meant death, where reflexes determined survival, where fear was weakness. But Jurok wasn't on Dracon Prime. He was bored. His mother, Ambassador Thressa, was in another endless meeting with the other delegates. His tutor had given him free time, expecting him to study the cultural databases. Instead, Jurok had convinced his littermates, Kessa and Vorn, to explore the ship's human section. "I smell something strange," Kessa said, her nose wrinkling. Her silver fur bristled with curiosity. Vorn bounded ahead on all fours, his claws clicking against the deck plating. "The humans use primitive cleaning methods. Father says they're obsessed with—" He never finished the sentence. The moment Vorn's paws touched Arya's freshly waxed corridor, physics took over. His legs shot forward. His body became horizontal, and he slid across the gleaming surface like a missile across ice. His startled yowl echoed through the deck as he careened past startled crew members, his claws scrabbling uselessly for purchase. Jurok's eyes widened. Then something unexpected happened. He grinned. Without hesitation, he took a running start and launched himself onto the waxed floor. The sensation was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Frictionless, exhilarating, dangerous in a way that tickled every predatory instinct in his brain. He slid 30 meters before crashing into Vorn in a tangle of limbs and laughter. "Again!" Jurok shouted. Kessa needed no further encouragement. Within minutes, all 3 Krell cubs were sliding up and down the corridor, their fearsome claws retracted, their terrifying fangs exposed in expressions of pure joy. Other young aliens noticed the commotion. A pair of Zentari hatchlings joined in, their tentacles flailing with delight. A teenage Grox, typically sullen and territorial, discovered that his segmented body made him naturally hydrodynamic on the waxed surface. The human quarters had become a playground. Arya returned 2 hours later to resupply her cleaning kit and froze at the entrance to her corridor. The scene before her defied comprehension. Dozens of alien younglings, some of the most dangerous species in known space, were sliding, spinning, and colliding with each other in what could only be described as organized chaos. Jurok had organized them into a game, using cargo netting as a finish line. The cubs took turns sliding from one end of the corridor to the other, timing each other with fierce competitive spirit. A Krell mother stood at the corridor's edge, her expression inscrutable. Ambassador Thressa, Arya realized with growing horror, one of the most influential diplomats in the sector, watching her child use a human maintenance corridor as a recreational facility. Arya approached cautiously. "Ambassador, I apologize. I was just cleaning," and Thressa raised a clawed hand for silence. Her amber eyes remained fixed on Jurok, who had just executed a perfect spinning slide that ended in a graceful tumble. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she looked at Arya, and something surprising softened in her predatory features. "On Draken Prime," Thressa said quietly, Cubs learn survival through constant danger. Every moment is training for the kill, for the hunt, for dominance. We do not have play. Not like this. She gestured at the sliding cubs. My son has learned 17 combat forms. He can track prey across 40 kilometers of dense forest. He has never simply enjoyed himself. Arya watched as Jurok helped a smaller alien, a Pixan child barely old enough to walk, slide safely down the corridor. The tiny creature chirped with happiness, and Jurok's fierce expression melted into something gentle, protective. Your floor wax, Thressa continued, has done what 3 cycles of diplomatic functions could not. Look, Arya followed her gaze. The corridor was now filled with younglings from species that had been enemies for centuries. A Mordak child and a Selenite hatchling slid down the corridor together, tentacles and appendages tangled in shared laughter. Their parents, she noticed, had gathered at the corridor's edges, not to retrieve their children, but to watch. Some were smiling. The Galactic Council meets tomorrow, Thressa said. We have argued for 2 weeks about territory, resources, old grievances. But our children, she looked at Arya, they have found common ground on your waxed floor. By morning, the incident had spread throughout the stellar convergence. The human maintenance corridor had been officially designated as a recreational cultural exchange zone. Arya found herself giving demonstrations on proper waxing techniques to fascinated xenobiologists who couldn't understand why removing friction could create such joy. The Galactic Council's session the next day was notably different. The ambassadors were more cordial, more willing to compromise. Several delegates mentioned seeing their children playing together, actually playing, not competing or posturing, but genuinely enjoying each other's company. Jurok stood with his mother at the council chamber entrance, his formal diplomatic robes looking uncomfortable on his small frame. When he saw Arya passing by, he broke protocol and bounded over to her. Thank you, he said in carefully practiced human standard. Your floor was fun. Arya knelt down to his level, this predator cub who had discovered that sliding could be as thrilling as hunting. Any time, Jurok. The corridor is always there. As the council session began, Arya returned to Deck 7 with a new mission. She had 46 more corridors to wax, and suddenly diplomatic relations seemed to depend on it. Behind her, the sound of laughter, multi-species, multilingual, universal, echoed through the ship. Humanity had brought many things to the galaxy: technology, art, stubbornness, and an inexplicable fondness for making floors dangerously slippery. Sometimes it turned out that was exactly what the universe needed.